Kings Island managed to catch lightning in a bottle not once, but twice during the 1970s, something they haven't been able to do since. Is that wait finally over? In 1972, Kings Island would change the roller coaster community forever. They were about to open a racing wooden coaster that was designed to pump fresh air into a dying obsession people once had with roller coasters. It was called the Racer, and the mission was a success, making people fall in love with coasters all over again, while also reigniting the nearly extinct coaster wars. But they wouldn't stop there, because this was just the foundation for what was to come. Fast forward just 7 years later, and Kings Island would give the world a beast. The Racer may have reignited the coaster war, but it was that monster, the Beast, that delivered the dagger. And that's basically how the game has evolved since the Beast gave its first rides in '79. Whether you love it or hate it, there's no denying the important role it played in all our favorite rides today. If it had never been built, would we still be building record-breaking coasters in 2020? Probably so, but one thing for sure, everyone's top 10 would look a lot different. You look at the impact the Beast had on future coasters, and it's easy to see how Kings Island hasn't been able to top this announcement in 40 years. I'm not sure anyone could. Kings Island's added a lot of solid coasters to the park over the years, and it's considered a bucket list park by enthusiasts. So before Orion gives its first rides of 2020, I wanted to put a video together of all the current coasters and a few of the defunct ones the park has built since the Beast, and explain why I think Orion is the biggest announcement for Kings Island in 4 decades. Just 2 years after the Beast would change everything, Kings Island would open another first-of-its-kind roller coaster. It would be called the Bat, and it would be constructed by Ariel Development. The ride was a prototype steel suspended coaster, and everyone wanted to get to the park to experience it. Just the thought of hanging below the track and swinging to the right and left during turns was exciting. Unfortunately, some engineering mistakes were made during the design of the track that would cause the ride to spend much of its short life down for maintenance. And after only 2 years, it was announced it would never open again. This was a real shame, but it did help to pave the way for future suspended coasters that were a huge hit, including Iron Dragon at Cedar Point, which you can still ride today. In 1987, the park would open Vortex, once again looking to break a few records, including the tallest full-circuit coaster ever built and the first to feature 6 inversions. But this one was somewhat of a head-scratcher. You see, it was going to be built by Arrow, the same manufacturer that had just built the failed Bat a few years earlier. And to top it off, it was being built on the same land the Bat occupied. However, Arrow was one of the hottest manufacturers in the game at the time, and with the success of rides like Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens, I guess Kings Island just decided to sweep the Bat under the rug and forget about it. Vortex would go on to be much more successful for the park, given nearly 50 million rides before the park would announce its closure in 2019. But in no way was this ride ever a bigger announcement than the Beast. In 1991, Adventure Express was built. Parks everywhere wanted a mine train, and Kings Island decided to get a piece of the pie too. And I'm glad they did, because I always make sure to ride this when I visit. It was a great addition to the park, but far from a thrilling coaster. 1992 was perhaps the closest any coaster has ever came to overshadowing the Beast. It was the brand new Great Pumpkin Coaster. I'm just kidding. This was a great addition to the family area of the park, and it was really needed. In 1993, the park opened Top Gun, which has since been renamed the Bat. The park just wasn't ready to move on from that prototype suspended coaster that had just failed 10 years earlier. It was such a good concept, and Arrow seemed to figure out the formula with Big Bad Wolf and Iron Dragon after the bat failed. Now, there are not many of these suspended coasters left in operation, but let me tell you, they are so much fun and such good rides to get over your fear of coasters if you're a little nervous. This was a fantastic addition to the park and still one of my favorite rides there. However, the announcement was just a tad too late for this successful ride to even come close to the Beast announcement. 1996 would go down in history as King's Dominion and Kings Island would both open the first LIM launch coasters on the same day, paving the way for a new generation of coasters that we know and love riding today. It's an indoor roller coaster that feels great to ride on a hot day. This may have been one of the most important and groundbreaking coasters when it opened, but what it did best was open doors for coasters to come. 1999 was a year for the Boomerang, known as Face Off and later in Vertigo. This is a ride that has its fan, but for the most part, they're rough, low capacity, and don't offer much of an experience. I personally ride them once for the credit and move along, but I do prefer them inverted like this one instead of the set-down versions. 2000 was the year Kings Island was determined to catch that lightning again. Yep, this was it. They planned out a new coaster that would break so many records and make us question everything we thought we knew about the limits of a wooden structure. This type of hype would have to be connected to the one that started it all. Kings Island Unleashed Son of Beast. On paper, this ride would capture everyone's attention. Coaster enthusiasts were eager to travel the world for this ride, and having the father in the same park would make Kings Island one of the top bucket list parks in the world. Unfortunately, the ride never lived up to the hype, and it was riddled with problems from the very start. It would become a complete mess for the park, and they would spend many seasons maintaining it and trying to make it better. In 2009, the ride would close indefinitely, and in 2012, it was announced it would be removed. One could make the argument that the announcement for the Son of Beast was bigger than the Beast, and I won't completely disagree with that. However, with all the issues and it not living up to the hype, I'm still going to stick with the original. And even though it's been completely destroyed, in a way, I still feel like it haunts the park. For 1 second, let's just imagine that Kings Island would have called Rocky Mountain Construction to come in and operate. If you think Steel Vengeance had a lot of hype after that conversion, this would have been on a whole nother level. Oh yeah, now you know what I meant when I said this ride still haunts the park. But that's just my personal opinion. Let me know in the comments below which coaster you think would make the best RMC conversion. In 2001, the park added Flying Ace Ariel Chase. It's a great family addition to the Planet Snoopy section of the park, and it gave them 3 junior coasters, which is always important for a park to have in my opinion. In 2005 was the addition of Backlot Stunt Coaster. This is a neat ride and it has some really cool effects when it first opened. In 2007, Cedar Fair decided to relocate the Flying Dutchman from Geauga Lake and rename it Firehawk. This ride had its fans, and after riding Nighthawk at Carowinds, it almost made me one as well. Flying coasters can be pretty neat, but I prefer the B&M ones that lift you up into the flying position instead of tilting you down. I find them to be much more comfortable, and most of all, the lift hill is much better because you're not facing up with the sun on a hot summer day beaming down on your eyes. But it wasn't a bad ride at all. I only got a few rides on it before the park announced in 2018 that it would be removed. In 2009, they added a solid hyper in Diamondback. This will become the tallest ride in the park at 230 foot, and it will hit speeds of 80 miles an hour. It was a fantastic addition to the lineup and will become many people's favorite ride at Kings Island. One thing I really enjoy is how it goes into the woods. However, it doesn't quite feel like you're really in the woods because you're so far above the trees. This was a fantastic fit for the park, and I always enjoy riding this and watching that awesome splashdown from a path. When it was announced, many hypers had already been built, so it would be hard for me to put this one at the top. In 2014, after the great success of Diamondback, they called B&M again. only this time to build one of the baddest inverts in the world. And it's for sure a great ride with one of my favorite color schemes, and in my opinion it has one of the coolest logos I've ever seen. However, I don't think it quite delivered the way some people were hoping it would. It has a noticeable rattle and the new vest restraints that some people aren't a big fan of. I just don't think that Banshee packs the punch people were hoping for. You see, I really feel that if Kings Island would have dropped the news out of nowhere that Banshee was going to be the next coaster and it was being built in another area of the park other than that land the Son of Beast was on, that people would have just been much more accepting of it. But that wasn't the case. In 2012 they demolished Son of Beast. And like I said earlier, this was supposed to be one of the most legendary coasters ever built. It had hype surrounding it that was on another level. And it ended up being a complete disaster. And I think people were still upset about the entire thing. Some mad it was never fixed. Some would never get over the fact that it didn't live up to the hype they had expected. Others upset it wouldn't get the RMC treatment. And I'm sure the park considered every possible option and made the best decision. But that will never change how people think. And I feel people were expecting Kings Island to right the ship after the Son of Beast disaster and build a new coaster for the ages. One that lived up to the original hype that plot of land had set years earlier. And at the end of the day, Banshee is a great coaster. It just happens to be sitting on a plot of land that will always feel haunted by the Son of Beast. You see what I was talking about earlier, don't you? In 2017, the park opened Mystic Timbers, and let me tell you, this is hands down the best GCI I've personally ever rode. To me, this is how a wooden coaster should feel. It's perfect. I love how it takes you deep into the woods, the transitions are great, it has solid pops of airtime, and the theming is very well done. At first, some people were a little upset because of the big focus on the whole what's in the shed deal, and it didn't turn out to be as much as they were thinking. For me personally, the shed is great. It gives you a chance to sit in the shade while the second train loads, and I'll always welcome that. This ride is for sure one of the best in the park, and probably my personal current favorite, but it's obvious this announcement wasn't bigger than the Beast in 1979. And now Kings Island is set to open Orion, which will be one of the tallest roller coasters in the world when it opens to the public in April of this year. It's hands down the biggest announcement for the park in the last 40 years, and even though this is already a bucket list park, I think Orion puts it in a truly elite category as one of the top parks in the world. Now I know that some coaster enthusiasts were really hoping that this would break height records, and some were hoping for a completely new experience we haven't seen at another park before. And that's completely normal. I'm not here to change any minds, which is why I put that clip together at the beginning of this video. It shows how competitive and fun roller coasters have become over the years, much of which Kings Island started with the Beast. But let's not forget how lucky we are to get this great coaster. And real quick, have you got a chance to watch my top 10 most forgotten coasters? I spent a lot of time telling you how Great Bear don't get the love it should, and how Montu and Afterburn are put on such a big pedestal that one of them is probably going to wind up a statue in front of the park. Man, get that out of here. Because what I didn't tell you is that there is one invert that gets next to zero attention, and it might be better than all three.